This revolution is not going away.
This is the Ron Paul Liberty Report with Ron Paul, Daniel McAdams, and Chris Rossini.
We are all ambassadors of the Ron Paul doctrine, and it's so simple. Just tell the truth.
An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any government.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With us today, we have Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you this morning.
Good morning, Dr. Paul. How are you this morning?
Doing fine. We're going to solve the problem of the Middle East. All the breakthroughs, then they break up, and then they're back to square one. And I think they came up short of the promise in the campaign that we were going to end wars and not start any, and they would just have to be very, very brief. So we do have a war going on. It was just going to be 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, and I don't even know if I'd bet that it won't go to 3 years, because in a way we've been at this particular war and this conflict in the Middle East for a long, long time. And it's continuing, but it's flaring up right now. But I find it interesting that Lebanon is a big deal right now. And it looks like Trump has decided he wants to go out as a hero and end the war in Iran. Even though he could have prevented it, that would have been a better way to happen. But if he wants to end the war and get credit with it, then also solve the problem of Lebanon. So he wants to be in charge, and he's, at least in the PR, he's putting pressure on the Lebanese to just quit shooting and firing and warmongering with Israel, because we can get a peace treaty with Iran. And I would say the odds are very, very slim that that's going to happen. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try. But, I was thinking about, the non-interventionist foreign policy is easy for me to understand and why it's so superior to the intervention. But I also recognize what a mess if they did exactly my suggestion, because I think that's the ultimate answer. Just get out of the way, come home. But can you imagine what the Middle East would be like? But it's going to get like that, and that is that we run out of steam or run out of money, and the whole place blows up. And that I think is a great potential, dragging more and more people in, because there's the secondary layer of interest, and that has to do with Russia and China and India. So it's been expanded, and this to me is very, very dangerous. And right now, all the shenanigans go on. I was being cynical a little while ago with you, that they say we're going to do this and this and this, and I say, yeah, and how many people believe this, that we finally have something going on? Now, there's another ceasefire. Well, 12 hours, they haven't had anything. They fell asleep. So obviously they're pushing again, and there's good intentions on the part of some people. But no matter how good your intentions are, if you have a lousy, dangerous, evil, immoral policy that violates the Constitution, it doesn't compensate. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, the thing. Okay, we can put out that first one. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Trump pushes to end Lebanon conflict in hope of unlocking a deal with Iran. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal reporting and other reporting, President Trump called Netanyahu in Israel and had a heated discussion at which some strong words were mentioned. We will talk about that in a minute. I would just preface it by saying I don't believe this, because we've heard this before. We've heard the fact that Trump and Netanyahu are having a hard time. They're yelling at each other over and over again. This is a way, and you mentioned this when we talked about it before the show, these are for the consumption of domestic audiences in both places. But if you go to the next one, as we know, and we've talked about it on the show, Israel has been pummeling Lebanon. They have completely destroyed southern Lebanon. They've killed over 3,000 Lebanese civilians in their push, in their land grab in Lebanon. And so what we have yesterday, President Trump on Monday aimed to quash a growing conflict between Israel and Hezbollah that threatened to derail his peace talks with Iran. Now, this is because, as an aside, because Iran said, we're not going to talk to you anymore. We're not going to exchange messages anymore until Israel stops carpet bombing Lebanon, because that was part of the original early April deal. Anyway, back to the story. Declaring that both sides had agreed to stop fighting and that Israeli Prime Minister had called off attacks on Lebanon. That was apparently what happened yesterday. Netanyahu said he would attack terror targets in Beirut if Hezbollah continued targeting Israel. Trump, on Truth Social, his preferred method of communication, said, let's see how long this lasts. Hopefully it'll be for eternity. Now, and here's the part what I started out with, Dr. Paul. If you go to the next one, Trump's moves, which included a phone call to Netanyahu, appear to be aimed at preventing U.S. negotiations with Iran from collapsing. The fighting in Lebanon had become a major sticking point in end-of-war talks, as Iran considers the conflict a violation of the U.S. Iran ceasefire. Of course, that's the Wall Street Journal putting their spin on it. Lebanon was indeed included in the original ceasefire. It was there for everyone to see, so it wasn't a matter of what you consider or what you don't consider. So as the Israeli attack on Lebanon, Dr. Paul, heated up to the point where they were about ready to start attacking Beirut again, Iran said, okay, that's it, no more talks, we're done. And President Trump apparently called Netanyahu and said, cool it. I, again, seriously doubt that it happened the way the press reports it.
You know, sometimes they think the announcements by both sides on Lebanon is just a border dispute and a bad situation. But a lot of people are dying, and it's going on, and there's this horrendous amount of money, and the American people should never be complacent enough to say, well, you know, it's Israel's fault. It's the Lebanese fault, and on and on. And they avoid saying where the real fault and the stimulation and all this planning comes from. It's out of the pockets of the American taxpayers, whether it's through inflation and higher prices, or whether it's high taxation or our interfering and pretending that we can tell them what to do. I don't see how it can go much longer, because the market really is in charge, and that is empires end. Nobody knows when and how, but big ones, it takes a lot longer, and that is going to happen, and it's happening already. Our empire is shrinking, and it means that somebody's going to be unhappy. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we have today, probably in the world, and that has to do with the relationships of Israel, the United States, and the various countries over there in Iran, and all of it could essentially have been prevented if we would have had a sensible, non-interventionist foreign policy with a willingness to be friends with other people and not pretend that the world will be saved by us enhancing, no matter how we do it, the world empire as long as we're in charge.
Absolutely. Let's go to to that next clip, and this is what we have here. So last week, Trump's advisors declared that a deal with Iran was close, but it didn't materialize as the U.S. struggled to receive guarantees from Tehran that it would never seek a nuclear weapon or dispose of its enriched uranium. Of course, they've been saying they wouldn't seek a nuclear weapon for about 30 years, but apparently that's not good enough, and they're not going to give up their enriched uranium, so it's a moot point. But by Monday, Trump told CNBC he, quote, didn't care if the, quote, very boring, end quote, Iran talks came to an end. To me, Dr. Paul, that sounds like President Trump is concerned that things aren't going his way, pretending that he's bored. He doesn't care about it anymore. He's done with it. I think is that indication. Now, you go to the next one. Earlier on Monday, Netanyahu announced that Israel would strike targets in Beirut's southern suburbs. Now, that's what I started out, mentioning. The Israeli military even issued evacuation orders for civilians before strikes. Israel has mostly held back from striking densely populated Beirut. Not absolutely true. Following U.S. pressure, though, it has continued to regularly strike in southern Lebanon. Trump's announcement brought an immediate backlash from Israeli lawmakers. Now, this is interesting, from Netanyahu's coalition and the opposition. Quote, "This is the time to tell our friend President Trump no," end quote. Far-right Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir said. So he's getting a lot of pushback. Even Netanyahu's getting a lot of pushback from his people, saying we have to take Lebanon. We have to continue attacking and conquering countries in the region, and we have to be at this point where we just tell the U.S., too bad, we're going to do what we want to do anyway.
And this will affect all the people of the Middle East. It's going to affect the American taxpayer and American citizens who support this by either neglecting to pay it any attention and have an opinion and try to motivate the members of Congress to do differently, because the people, even though the numbers right now show that our position in a general sense is more popular than the position of what's going on now, and maybe that's an explanation of why Trump's numbers are going down. So that is something that is existing, it's changing, and if it doesn't come under control, then of course it gets much more violent. But how can it get much more violent? And I see the ultimate conclusion being down the road, maybe sooner than later, and that is it's going to be an economic calamity where we just can't do it. But there are some people, some countries, believe it or not, I believe it, that some of the countries that we consider way out there politically, communists and all these other things that they support, that they are probably wiser on how they spend their money and how they run their operation. Making stuff for China, for instance, they make stuff for us. Oh, well, just don't buy them. Then they won't have any profit. No, we're part of the marketplace, and I imagine a lot of people are like I am. I don't even look at the labels. Yeah. I guess I'm not a good patriot. I look at the price and whether I want the stuff. So that is something that somebody. My point is that there are some countries, whether it's going to be India or Iran or China, are going to be in better position financially than we are. And that is really a big change compared to what we've had, the wealth we've had, the wealth we still have. And the fundamentals are still around, the basic fundamentals of our Constitution. It's just that it's very lackadaisical now. Not many people, giving enough consideration to those problems.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And it's coming. We're going to run out of oil in July because President Trump, while the media doesn't report it, is draining the strategic reserve. We're about to run out with no new oil coming. But, and we talk about it too, and I have a huge interest in how the media covers things. I talked about it a little bit at our conference in April. But we've seen this pattern of, and I've mentioned his name before, Barak Ravid, who worked in the IDF in their propaganda Unit 8200. He now is one of the chief correspondents for Axios. He's the one who always seems to get these insider tips from the Trump administration when they want to put out a narrative. Now, journalists should challenge, of course, when the government gives you some inside info. You shouldn't take it for face value, obviously. You should challenge it, which he does not do. So he reported yesterday of this, tough phone call between Trump and Netanyahu, and how Trump forced Netanyahu to back down from attacking Beirut. And that is how it is. So Trump looks like a hero. Netanyahu looks like someone who's willing to compromise a little bit for the sake of its relationship with the United States. I would suggest that there's something else happening. And if you go to the next clip, this is Dave DeCamp, and I think Dave gets it right. Far less than Trump calling up Netanyahu and screaming and cursing, Ghalibaf, now that is the Speaker of the Parliament for Iran, he said that Iran will be in direct confrontation with Israel if it doesn't halt its attacks on Lebanon. He made the comments in a post on X recounting a conversation he had with Speaker of Lebanese Parliament and the leader of the Amal movement, a Shia political faction aligned with Hezbollah. And here's what Ghalibaf, the Speaker of Parliament, said. In my conversation with my brother, President Nabih Berri, I affirmed that if the Israeli aggression against Lebanon continues, we will not only halt the path of negotiations, but we will be also in direct confrontation with the enemy. So I think the real thing that got the halt on the attacks in Beirut is a credible Israeli threat against northern Israel.
You know, you mentioned something where I think is
Iranian.
a real cog in a wheel on preventing the information from getting out, and that is the media. They receive these reports because they're secret, and
Yeah.
you know, and you don't have to identify the people. The opposite of what a good journalist should be doing, accepting
Unnamed
this.
sources,
But
yeah.
they're just a unit of passing it along. Oh, I get my message today. Oh, I'll pass that along, and it moves quickly.
Yeah.
By afternoon, there may be another one contradicting it.
Yeah.
So it goes on, and that's we are starved for good journalists, and we have to admit, though, we know some very good ones,
do, for
and and they're out there. That's why we have to work so hard to preserve the principle of protecting the First Amendment, and that's where I think we're very careless.
And it's such a good point because we don't know who was leaking this information and what kind of an axe they may have to grind. What if it's Jared Kushner? Now he's going to want to leak information that would benefit him. What if it's someone else? What if it's J.D. Vance? What if it's whoever, the chief of staff? You don't know. So anything, you can get anything out by saying, I'm an anonymous leaker. Here's what's going on. I've got insider info. And it's a good way of actually propagandizing people more
Right.
than anything else. So to finish out the Lebanon thing, we'll have to keep a watch on it. But we turn to our great friend and wise man, Thomas Massie. If you go to that next one, he was out on X today, and he was responding to a Fox News report. Now, this is what everything is going around. Trump saying to Netanyahu, you are blanking crazy. You'd be in prison if it weren't for me. I'm saving your blank, blank, blank. Everyone hates you. Everyone hates Israel because of this. That's what U.S. officials tell Axios. Okay, we talked about Axios. How he unloaded on the Israeli Prime Minister. Okay, I don't believe it's true. Maybe it is true. But Thomas Massie, of course, makes the great point that it's irrelevant. He says it's all talk. Just withhold foreign aid to Israel for a month, and they'll stop bombing their neighbors. Instant peace. The Strait of Hormuz can be opened, and gas drops to $2 a gallon. Israel has been and continues to be the biggest welfare recipient from American taxpayers. And isn't that such a simple solution? Just cut off the aid, you guys.
The truth is freedom is popular.
Yeah.
Let's just go for a freedom approach to this rather than expanding the empires, expanding the controls, expanding authoritarianism, expanding, a form of economic policy, which is being used and sounds friendly by intervention, for the poor and the sick. Instead, have a sense of policy. Well, we're not communists, and we take care of the sick, and yet at the same time, what we have done in the United States is consume. We were blessed with such a tremendous opportunity, both in natural resources as well as a very good guideline, though imperfect, is our Constitution. But they mock the Constitution, really, behind the scenes. Boy, I have heard some talks that is pretty rough. They don't want to be guided by that. So I can understand what Thomas must be going through.
Yeah.
But, I don't worry about him because he's a strong person. And he has his feet on the ground. He knows and understands this. That's why this information is so important. And that's why I think we must do our best to know where the truth is, where it lies, and doing our best to spread the message. And there are some days that I'm pleasantly surprised that we reach more people than I ever dreamed we could reach, because it's a challenge to the status quo. It's a challenge to political power, and it's a challenge to the military powers. But still, the truth is truth is something worth standing up for, and you have to believe there's an answer to this, and it's something that a debate that's been going on for centuries. But that to me, I think, is going to remain that way. But it's also very important if you care about people and the way they have to live. If they don't have an understanding of the value of a natural law, system where people are not inclined to or blessed with, use all the force you can, lying, cheating, stealing, and killing, and they do it outside of government. But the real place is in the government. Just think of, you just listed a little while ago the number of people that, I think it was in Lebanon.
Yeah.
People have died, 30-some thousand of people, and that isn't 35,000 people murdered last night in a street fight. There's a lot of that going on, but it's the size of government and the tolerance of government, because people on the receiving end think it'll really work. But Daniel, I'll finish by saying that I really think there's a shift in there. I wouldn't be able to rest if I didn't think that any good comes by expressing and trying to understand what freedom is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the case. Well, let's do something a little fun. Let's watch Marco Rubio, our favorite Secretary of State. He was before the Senate talking about Iran, and he unintentionally, I would suggest, drops a couple of zingers. So listen to this first one. He's talking about the U.S. war on Iran. If we can, let's listen to this. Let's listen in here.
Let me first bifurcate two things. The only reason there's a blockade, the only reason why there's a U.S. blockade is because Iran has closed they're firing on commercial ships, and they've mined large segments of Hormuz international waters. And so the blockade is only against Iranian ships. And it's very simple. The notion is if no one's ships are going to get out, then Iran's ships aren't going to get out either. We can't live in a world in which they get to close the straits and tell everybody, pay us a toll or we'll blow you up, but their ships get to go out unfettered. So that's the reason why there's a blockade. There wouldn't have been a blockade if Iran had agreed to do what they said they would do when the ceasefire kicked in, which is they were going to open the straits. So let me just focus on the straits for a moment. Number one, what they're doing is unlawful and illegal. There isn't a country on earth, other than Iran, maybe Oman that flirted with it, who's in favor of what Iran is doing in the straits. The Chinese are against it.
Let's
The Russians
pause
are
that for a
against it.
second.
Everyone is against it.
What Iran is doing by closing the strait, which they haven't done, by the way, they just said you have to pay a fee. What they have done is unlawful and illegal, says Marco Rubio. I just wonder, how unlawful is it to launch a sneak attack against a foreign country and assassinate its entire leadership? The idea that Marco Rubio will sit up there and condemn how unlawful it is for Iran to close a strait that is within its own territorial waters, when you launched a sneak attack and killed its leadership.
Well, basically, those waters have been open to the world for a long time. And you wonder, well, what started this? And Rubio is trying to explain to her, it's those bad people that live there, and therefore we have to punish them. But the whole thing is before the waters were open, until we got super involved, in the Middle East, and sort of coming to a climactic end, quite possibly, between Israel and Iran, and we've been involved. So this recent episode, none of it would happen without money. And Thomas's point is so correct.
Yeah.
You stop the money, the American people say, "Hey, the price of gasoline just went down."
Yeah, thank you.
So all we could do is...
Well, let's have another little bit more Rubio for us this morning. This almost feels like a Monday morning. We're watching Rubio. Now, here's Rubio. The second one is him describing the Operation Epic Fury against Iran. Let's listen to this for a second.
Operation Epic Fury, some of you didn't like it, some of you did, was highly successful in achieving its military objectives, which is dramatically reducing the defense industrial base of Iran.
Okay, we can stop with that. It was a highly successful operation. Now, it's a little bit tricky back there, and I apologize, but go to that clip. Iran has dug out more missile tunnels. Not the video clip, but the that clip from Zero Hedge. So highly successful operation, Dr. Paul. Bang. Iran has dug out more missile tunnels than previously thought. According to satellite analysis, they've cleared the entrances to 50 out of 69 tunnels alongside 18 distinct missile production sites. Remember, he said, we've destroyed their ability to produce missiles. Nope, not the case. Go to the next one. CNN is showing satellite photos showing it highlights the limits to U.S. bombing strategy. So there you go. You failed that one too, Mr. Rubio. It was not highly successful. And now I'm going to just do one more, Dr. Paul, because this is Marco Rubio Day on the Liberty Report. The next one is no Navy, if you put that one up. Here's Marco Rubio telling us the status of the Iranians now. It's a video clip, the third video clip. Let's listen to Marco Rubio on this.
Let me first bifurcate two things. The only reason there's a blockade, the only reason why there's a U.S. blockade is because Iran has closed they're firing on commercial ships, and they've mined large segments of Hormuz international waters. And so the blockade is only against Iranian ships. And it's very simple. The notion is if no one's ships are going to get out, then Iran's ships aren't going to get out either. We can't live in a world in which they get to close the straits and tell everybody, pay us a toll or we'll blow you up. Let me first.
Okay, hold on. That one's not exactly what it was, but there was a clip, and I have it probably disorganized. But he said, today there is no Iranian Navy. There is no such thing. There is no Navy. There is no Iranian Navy. Right after he said that, Dr. Paul, go to the next one. Oh, no. Actually, go to the. I did have it disorganized, but right after that, he accuses Iran of firing on ships and mining the strait. So literally right next to each other, he says they have no navy. We've destroyed their navy. But somehow they're firing on ships and mining the strait. How are those two things possible
And a big effect, too.
Yeah, at the same time.
You know, isn't it amazing that they claim we had a military victory, we bombed their nuclear sites and gone forever. Or there's always some target that they hit, and there was a tremendous success. How many times have they used the same argument? They wait a week and they do it again. Yeah. So that means you didn't do it, or what's the story? But I'm amazed that they can use the same excuse that it. I've destroyed it today. It's done. We've had a wonderful military victory. Then no, they wouldn't do it the next day. They'd wait at least a week. Yeah. Then they'd have another attack.
Yeah. So anyway, I added this last. It's not a video clip. We're going to skip that last video. Just that last clip from the White House. It's a post on X from the White House. Don't worry, Dr. Paul. We've been here. We've been fuming. We've been doing all of our stuff and getting worried about what's happening. We should just listen to the president. Trust in Trump, it says. Just sit back and relax. It will all work out in the end. It always does. which is funny in a way. It's actually probably one of the least offensive things that he's done on his Truth Social, but it just kind of seems weird. I mean,
well, he's an optimist.
Yeah,
it's going to all work out in the end, and that sounds fine. So if it's all going to work out all right, Trump's an optimist. Yeah. He's looking for the positive things, so everything is going to be just fine.
Right. Yeah.
And as long as we can just repeat our stories, well, we took care of this, and do it again, the American people will, be persuaded. Yes, that's what they think.
Yeah.
But the American people, maybe when we criticize the American people for not waking up, maybe there's some explanation of that. Maybe a lot of them awakened, and yet they're intimidated in all kinds of ramifications, which makes it impossible for them to change it. But I think it's a change of ideas, and the change of ideas here is the change of what we think our foreign policy ought to be. And believe me, we could have a decent foreign policy with a lot less money and a lot more peace. That's what I think we should work for, and that's the emphasis on personal liberty.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. Well, we got another good live audience on X today, Dr. Paul, which makes us happy. It recharges our batteries. But a little suggestion out there, if you're watching, to put on that last clip. You're sitting there, you're watching. Yeah, sometimes maybe the show goes on a little bit long. You know, just go ahead and click on that QR code and get yourself some Ron Paul Liberty Report Revolution Blend Coffee from Moon Does Artisan Coffee, 100% USDA organic. It's a great mix. It's a great blend. They are our partners in the show. They are affiliates. We are affiliates of them, or however it works out. So grab some coffee when you join us next time, and we hope you do join us next time. So thanks a lot for watching the show, and I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Paul.
yeah. And I want to just close by thanking our audience once again for tuning in to the Liberty Report, and do whatever you can or are willing to do to spread this message of liberty. For it is a very popular and a very beneficial philosophy. It had been, characterized by the American people supporting it, but we need to encourage people to understand exactly what we need to do in understanding philosophy, and that is working for personal liberty. It works much better than personal tyranny, which has existed more powerful throughout most of history. Please come back to the Liberty Report soon.
Thanks for watching the Ron Paul Liberty Report. Like and subscribe to help spread the message. And until next time, live free.
This country is